Okay, folks, what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at creating a GUI. And in the GUI, what we're going to do is we're going to connect to a CSV file that contains a number of records. What we're going to do is we're going to go through those records. We're going to calculate something from each one of those records. We are going to display it on a GUI using a thing called a listbox. And what we're going to do is we're also going to write the results to a Word document. So there's a lot in this one there. So we'll get straight into the GUI. So this is a really basic and plain GUI. I'm just going to go through the components here. So for row 1, which is statistics, I've just done a little label. As you can see there, I have called it statistics, the Arial font size 24 and in bold up there, and it's in row 0, column 0, and it's spanning 4 columns, probably too much to be honest with you, and then there's a padding on it for X and Y. Then in row 1, I've done a little kind of like another label called ordered reports, and then I've done 2 buttons here for the 2 reports that I want to create. One is where I'm going to be ordering by the student's English mark, and the other one's where I'm going to be creating an ordered report based on their average scores. Now, the last component is the list box, and if you can look at it here, it's called iList. List box, I put it in root, which is the frame that we're looking at here, with a height of 18 and a width of 40. I would suggest that you go away and play around with this. Don't do dot grid straight after this. Dot grid goes on the second one there. I've said put it into row 4 and column 0. And again, have a look at playing around with the components there. But realistically, that's not what we're after in terms of laying it out. It's more the functionality that we're looking at. So this is the txt file, okay? And as I said to you, when we click on the ordered report by average, you can see here that the record here contains a student ID, it contains a first name, a surname, and it contains 3 marks. So this is their English mark, this is their maths mark, and this one is their science mark. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be coding it in such a way that we go through each one of the records individually. We will go and work out their average, okay? We will then go and print out the student ID and their average score both to a Word document and onto the list box component in the GUI that we've already stated. So this is the button that I'm going to be working off, okay? It's called average button, it's in the frame, that's its text. Its command is sort students by average, okay? I've got a bit of a background of orange and a foreground of white. It just doesn't come up in my version of Python there, but again, that's not really the aim of this video here. So let's go up to the function here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a function that does everything. So the function name is sort student by average, okay? It calculates the average mark for each student, sorts it from largest to smallest, and displays it to the GUI and writes it to a file. Okay, so this is the start of my function, def sort students by average. Okay, now what I'm going to do first of all, and something that we haven't kind of come across previously, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this thing called an empty list. Now a list is a data structure in Python, and basically it's a dynamic data structure, which means that we can add things to it really easily. It can contain a number of different data types like strings and integers. And basically, we're going to store all of the results of our of our averaging and our reading through the CSV file. We're going to store all our results in this list here. So we set that, and these are 2 square brackets, by the way, just in case you were wondering how that is laid out. Okay, so what we have is we open up the students.txt file. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open up the students.txt file. And let me just talk you through this one here. So we know that we've saved it as a CSV file because there's commas between each one of the records. Again, really important to note how and in detail how your record is set up. Okay, that's really important there. So what we then do is we say reader equals CSV reader CSV file, which means that all of the data inside here is going to go inside the variable called reader. Now, What we're then going to do now is we're going to create a for loop. And what we do is we do for row in reader. Now what does this mean? So this will loop through each record individually. So when we run this first, row will take on the value of 261, Anthony Darabont, 13, 42 and 65. Now what do we want to do? Now the aim of this function is to go and take 13, 42 and 65 and basically find the average of those. Okay, so what do we do? So the first thing that we do is we do total equals int row 3. Now row 3. Now remember, with our rows, this starts at row position 0, row position 1, row position 2, and this is row position 3. Okay, now int. Now inside a CSV file, everything is stored as a string. Now in order for us to be able to add these together, we need to change them from a data type of string into a data type of integer. So we're going to add row 3, row 4 and row 5. So this is 13, 42 and 65. But as you've seen in the code there, we've changed them from strings into integers. Then what we're going to do is we're going to find the average of those three. So we would find the average of those three. We take the total, which is the total of them added together, and divide by 3. Now, because we're dividing by 3, we're going to get 0.33s or 0.66s, and we don't really want those. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to round it. So I'm going to create another variable called rounded average. I'm going to use the maths function of round, and I'm going to round the variable average, and we're going to round it to 1 decimal place. Now, this is the important thing here. Now, every time I do that for each record, I'm going to append. So I append row 0, which is the ID, yeah, and the variable rounded average. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is as I loop through, this list is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the things that it's going to contain is the student ID and the average. So as it loops up again back into row will then take on the values of the second record. It will find the average of the 3 marks that have been inputted, and then it will append the average that's been calculated from the 3 marks and the student ID into the student average marks list. It will continue to do this until it finds no more records. Okay, and then it will come out of the for loop, and you can see that it comes out of the for loop, and then we simply close the file. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this, and I'm going to show you what's in that student average marks list. So if I go print student average marks, okay, now if I run this, I'm just going to go OK. Right, so we're just going to have a look at when I run it. I'm just going to run it again. Sorry about that. Just going to run it. Okay, I'm going to click report by average. Now you'll see here there's the list. This is our student average marks list, and it contains the student ID and it contains the average mark. Student ID, average mark, student ID, average mark. Okay. So now what we have now is we've got all of the student IDs and the average mark. Okay, now the only issue with that is that that list is still unordered. So it's still unordered. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do 3 things. We are going to now order that list so that the list is reordered. So the student with the highest average mark goes to the top and the student with the lowest average mark goes to the bottom. Okay, what we're then going to do is we are going to open a Word document, okay, and we're going to write everything from our list into the Word document. We're going to then add everything into our list box so it will display for us. So the sorting of the list comes here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we create this average marks. Okay, this is the average marks. Okay, and we're going to connect to our, and what we're going to do is we're going to base our ordering of our list, okay, on the first element. Now the first element of our new list, yeah, which is the student average mark list, is the average mark. And then we say student average marks, which is our list, dot sort. We say the key equals the average marks. which we've created in the variable here, and we've said reverse equals true. Now reverse equals true means that we're putting the highest mark first and then going down to the lowest mark there. So again, if we just want to see that, okay, so we're going to print the student average marks list again. Okay, now if we run this one more time. Okay, average marks. Okay, now you can see the list is ordered. So it's got 47.3, 46.7, 40, 40, 38.7. So what we've done is we've taken our list now and we've ordered it based on the first element of our list. Yeah, okay, and now we've got our list ordered. So we know that student with ID 133 got the highest average mark, whereas student with 949 as an ID got the lowest average mark. Okay. So how are we going to write this? So what we're going to do is we're going to create our report. So the first thing we do is we're going to create our Word document. So what we do is we do F, and this could be any variable. I've just very simply called it F equals open. And what we're doing is we're opening a Word document and we're using .doc, okay? And then we're opening it in the write form. So that every time that we write it, yeah, we're going to overwrite anything that was there previously. So we'll take into account any updates in our lists. What we're then going to do is we're going to write a little title, okay? So the title is going to be called report name and ordered report by average. And now these are formatting here. So what we're going to do is this is a new line, so it's going to put a bit of space, and I'll show you what that is now in 2 seconds. We're also going to put in the date for when the report was created. So we use this variable called now equals datetime.datetime.now, okay? And then we simply write down what the date is. We use today's day. From the variable now, by the way, we use the day, the month, and the year, okay? And the last thing we do is we put in our little headings. The student ID, this is a tab, so again, it's another formatting. So tabbing means that we push it on an extra number of spaces, average marks, and then we use our new line to move on to the next bit. So then, what we then do is we're going to go through our new list, which is the student average marks. Remember, we sorted it there previously, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to do a for loop. So the for loop again will go through each element of the student average marks list. I will take on both the student ID and their average mark, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to simply write. Now, the 0th element is the student ID, yeah? And remember, there's only 2 elements in this student average marks list. There's the student ID and the average mark that they got. So student ID is in position 0, and then average mark that they got was in position 1. Now, we're going to, when we write the student ID, that's fine because it's a string. Now, because we calculated the average mark, inside this list, student average marks list, okay, that average mark is a float. So we've got to just convert it into a string, and every time we write the student ID and their average mark, we push it on a new line. Now the last thing that we do, okay, is that we insert into the listbox GUI component. So we just go ilist, and if you remember, yeah, when we set up the list, it was called the listbox was called ilist, and we do .insert. Now what this does, end means it just pushes it at the very bottom, okay? And we put in their student ID, again, which is the first element of the student average marks list. We tab it across, then we write in average marks, and then it's the string value of the average mark, okay? And you can see the student's average marks has 2 elements. Remember, the second element was the average mark, and we're just converting that from a float to a string. So let me just show this in operation there. So we'll run this through. Okay, I'm just going to minimize this. Oops. Minimize this. Now, if you have a look here, so you can see here, I'm just going to link it up to the code. Yeah, okay. I'm just going to bring this down here slightly. So remember, we created a student average marks list, okay, way up here, okay, when we opened up our CSV file. And what we did is we appended into it each time, we appended into the student ID, which is here, and the rounded average mark. What we then did is we took that new list and then we ordered it, and we ordered it in position 1, which was the average mark. Okay. Then what do? We went through that list, and every time we go through that list, we simply write, in the list, we just simply insert the student ID text, which is just here, plus whatever data is in the first position of the record, which is the student ID. Then we did the average mark plus the string value of whatever is in the second position, or position 1 of the record in that student average marks list. Now, let's have a look at the Word document. So if we open up the Word document, so you can see the Word document now, okay? If you look up here, yeah, we opened up called ordered report by average, okay? And you can see there, that's the name of the file that we've opened, yeah? What we've then done is we've put in a little heading, the report name. There's the report name just there. We've put in the date, okay? I remember we used only the day, the month, and the year. There's the day, the month, and the year, just missing that slash in between. We then wrote the student ID and the average marks heading, yeah? And then as we go through the loop, yeah, okay, we simply write in the first element of the loop, which was the student ID, and then the second element of the loop, which was the average mark that each one of those got. Remember, we tabbed twice, so it goes tab, moves it on, so it just lines it up nice and easily for us. And every time we go new line, it just moves it on to the new line again. Hope that makes sense to you there. Good luck with that.